welcome back to LinkedIn Logs, the jobs and business news podcast for the website cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. Welcome back in. The recording says a minute 37, but I started about 35 seconds ago. Mostly because I was sitting here deleting a story. Reading through. Sometimes I keep a story. And I just want to, I think, it's still pertinent, but also it's from July 31st. It's at this point, the day of recording and release. It's 12 days, 12 days old. But it's still pertinent. Similarly, I have a story from August 5th and one from August 7th. So how soon do I want them to be? How soon do I want them to be? This is episode 124. Welcome back in. It is the end of the workday. I have already done my second workout. Here's the deal. There's a challenge on I have a rower. There's along with the bike and the treadmill, and maybe another piece that I got on a very steep discount. Oof. But I didn't steal it. It was somebody was essentially giving it away. I think he did feel sorry for me. Anyway, the rower, the Concept 2, if you use the Concept 2 app, ErgData, I believe that's what it's called. They do, it's community driven. They have challenges and things like that, but it also logs how many meters you've rode. Anyway, there's a challenge every month, I believe, but there's an August challenge. This is my first challenge I'm actively doing with Concept 2. It is every week in August, you get 10, 20, 30, and then 40,000 meters each week. So it builds by 10 each week. And right now we're in the 20,000 meter week. And I have to add two rowing workouts, rather, not classes, because I do Peloton rowing as well. It doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? Anyway, I had to do rowing today when I usually just do yoga in the afternoon. Daddy's going to be tired. Daddy is tired. But it was great. This time I rode. I didn't do a Peloton class. I just turned on the ErgData app so I can log my meters, and I just played a playlist, and in the background I had Homicide: Life in the Streets playing because I'm fun. All right, let's get to the stories. Oh, what's going on with me at work? Nothing is happening. Nothing substantial. We're just trucking along. Yesterday I try to do this every week, but it does not happen every week. It usually happens every 3 or 4 weeks or every month at this point. But what I try to do is, I'm currently looking at the work laptop. What I try to do, if you're watching the video, you see me looking off screen. What I try to do is, as a producer at unnamed networks, I try, and we get a bunch of, or at least I get a bunch of forms for requests and things to be made, and then I pass it off to somebody else to actually make it. But what usually ends up happening is I have like hundreds of documents. I'm very organized, spread across like a bunch of folders that that are very much organized. But usually, again, if I let things go for about a month, then they get stacked up. So yesterday, I went through the platform we use, Airtable. I don't want to be too specific. I go through the platform we use, Airtable, and I went through all of the networks that I'm in charge of. 1, 2, 3, eventually 4, 5, 6. So eventually 7, but right now 6. And I just got rid of all the projects that were. Excuse me. I used whatever was on the table because that's the most up to date. And then I went to the folders where things were. I'm trying not to be specific, but I went to each network in every folder, and I went through everything that's on Airtable's current. went through the folder, and then essentially deleted the stuff that was in the folder. The end. It took a lot of time to describe, but also took a lot of time to do. But mostly, it's good because it's quick. It can be quick if I just mark things down. I take a lot of notes that nobody will read that don't make sense. And also, I use it as an excuse. I use this app called Notability. And it used to be paid, now it's free. But on the iPad, I use it as an excuse to write on the iPad with the pencil and everything. Anyway, all right, let's get into this. Shit, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Let's get into this. All right, this first one comes from Axios, written by Courtney Brown. A strange way to spell Courtney. Courtney. Employers are hiring less, but paying more. Now, I thought this was very interesting. This is, in particular, oh my God, I know a story that I could, never mind. I'm not going to do it. In particular, I saw a story in the New York Times that really pissed me off. But in particular, there's a lot of employment data that comes through. We just had the first Jobs Friday. We just had Jobs Friday for August. And apparently employers are not hiring as much, which makes sense right now. But we see here that Ms. Brown writes, private employment data suggests that the labor market might be tighter than the headline hiring numbers alone suggest, with worker pay accelerating alongside lackluster jobs growth. Now, all I've heard in my working life as an adult post-graduation is that people my age, millennials more or less, are job hopping. But then the pandemic happened and people job hop less, significantly so. And in my eyes, I don't necessarily see that people are moving from job to job, even especially now, but even back then, people, at least that I knew, weren't going from one job to the next every year or a couple of years or however much the data was saying. But now it appears as though that even though that hiring is not as good or as it's happening as much, employers still would like to retain employees with the money that they would typically pay to somebody else. But that's what I kind of don't get. I don't understand. I'm not a fan of all these, especially in this industry, all these networks and studios letting go of people and saying we're going to be lean and we're going to work a lot faster. Essentially, that means less is more, and you're going to be doing a lot more work. But in my eyes, wouldn't you want to hire from within and use the people who are already good at the job to make the people who deserve a leg up or even take on more responsibility and pay them more? Wouldn't that, I know that was a bad sentence, but still. So as employers pull back on hiring because the economics just aren't there right now in America, it's helping speed up pay growth, which is good for workers who desperately need it, in particular construction and healthcare, as Ms. Brown writes here, where employers are still competing for scarce labor. But the labor market is becoming increasingly uneven. While employers in some sectors are paying up to attract workers, others are more cautious about hiring as they contend with geopolitical uncertainty, tariffs, and a more reluctant consumer. Today, one of the headlines was David Ellison threatened California by saying, because there's a lawsuit that California, along with 11 other states, are suing Paramount Skydance for trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. And they're suing rightly so. But David Ellison, head of Paramount Skydance, son of right-wing contributor Larry Ellison, said, I'm gonna take the studios. No, he said yesterday. He said, we will sign a pledge to release 30 movies per year. And then today he said, I'm gonna take the studios out of California if California goes through with this. And then the AG was like, this is blackmail. The Attorney General was like, this is blackmail. You can't do that. Where would you take all of Paramount and Warner Brothers Studios? To Texas? Anyway. By the numbers, private employers added just 44,000 jobs in July, which is down from 95,000 in June and the weakest monthly gain since January. But annual growth for workers who changed jobs accelerated 7%, which is the fastest since August 2025, while pay for workers who stayed put held steady at 4.4%. Again, I'm a person who is a contract worker. My contract is, hopefully, God, I pray. I hope it gets renewed at some point soon-ish. And I hope it gets renewed for more money. Because we're at that point now. Between the lines, other private sector data shows that the labor market remains more resilient than the headline hiring figures alone suggest. Last Wednesday, the Bank of America Institute said its payroll gauge, based on customer deposit account data, accelerated by 2% year over year in July from 1.7% in June, with hiring strongest among lower income workers. The bank also said that after-tax wage growth for lower-income households accelerated to 5.2% last month, surpassing pay growth for higher-income households for the first time since late 2024. Well, that sentence doesn't make sense. Also said that after, and then she led with the rest of that phrase, then put a comma. And then it's in, okay. Anyway, so while the economics of the job world aren't exactly crystal clear right now, some employers are reluctant to hire, and persistent worker shortages are keeping wage pressures alive in key industries, which is something we kind of knew. On the other hand, this comes from AJ Katz at The Wrap. Sometimes companies make incredibly stupid mistakes. Now, if you'll recall, or you'll probably know, Allbirds, the shoe company, the shoe and clothing brand, decided we're done with that shoe and clothing business, and we are going into AI. Look at that shift come from the EW Scripps, which is set to become an AI-powered broadcast journalism company after sweeping layoffs. The company that I used to work for, EW Scripps, which purchased Bounce TV, the network I used to work at, Bounce TV, Grit, Court TV, and I don't know, some other shit. Truly shit. They went through layoffs before. Even after me, they went through layoffs. And now they're going through layoffs again. CEO Adam Simpson announced this was happening. This is last week. They cut 12% of its workforce at EW Scripps this year as the high-profile television station group embraces artificial intelligence and automation and sweeping overhaul of its news operations. Now, if you remember, Scripps runs Scripps News. And on top of that, I believe Court TV is a part of Scripps News at this point. They eliminated 432 positions and 126 open roles since the beginning of the year. This is from the earnings call on Thursday. That includes 268 layoffs disclosed earlier this week. So by my math, I'm going to do this math without using a calculator. 432 plus 268. I went with the bigger ones first. That is $790. Hold on. Hold on. I got this. I got this. Listen and watch me do math. I take the 2, put it on there. It's 270 plus 430. 430 plus 270 is, hold on, 730. 730 plus 126 is 856. God, I hope that math is right. I hope that math is right. Now I'm pulling out the calculator. What did I say, 856? 268. 826. All right. This is why I have a writing degree. Simpson said, we're leaning into AI, automation, technology, and the centralization of some roles. He described the changes as, quote, a revolution in how Scripps produces local news. This is supposed to generate, or expected to generate, $100 million in annualized savings as Scripps looks to remake its local TV business amid continued cord cutting and shifts in viewing habits and advertising dollars. Now, news is kind of what I would describe as the least money-making thing in television. It's so funny. Warner Brothers is like, we don't want to make children's TV shows anymore, so we'll allow everybody else to produce it, but we'll put our names on it because kids aren't watching TV. But I would think that news is in particular some of the least viewed television, period. There's a lot of news sources out there, as there should be. I'm currently watching PBS NewsHour right now, as I say goodbye at work. I'm currently watching PBS NewsHour right now on television, along with BBC News America. And it's, you know, we knew that GPB, excuse me, not just GPB, PBS was going through, along with NPR, it has gone through a lot of cuts because of the president. But if you look at news as a whole, if you look at anything on CNN or Fox or Miss Now, broadcast news, anything of that nature, and as well as broadcast news, the movie, fantastic movie, then you'll see that for all intents and purposes, news, especially local news, looks like shit. It looks just so horrible and bland. And let me tell you, the sets aren't any good. At least at CNN, the sets were, you know, it was all the same. It was the same backdrops, you know, more or less. And they shifted things around, you know. But that's what it is. News has to be simple. So I don't understand. And for anything that costs, anything that would cost a lot of money would be the people who, the anchors, the correspondents. That's pretty much it. Maybe the cameras, because at every news, I was gonna say at some of them, but at Weather Channel, 11 Alive, and at CNN, the cameras weren't operated by, you know, people holding cameras, with the exception of, I think, CNN This Morning. I believe they have camera people physically making sure the cameras are where they need to be. Yes, there's set directors and everything, and there's going to be somebody on the floor managers and all that stuff, making sure the automated cameras move places. But, 9 times out of 10, that's what it is. And then other times, there's somebody manning this giant 500-pound camera. That's not the real weight, but yeah. Anyway, and then also travel would probably cost a lot too. But I can't imagine anything else costing. You know, if this AI switch is supposed to generate $100 million, I can't imagine them spending that much money on news over any period of time. Anyway, but with AI, my concern is that they will just lean into AI, and I'm not just talking about writing and things of that nature, but I'm also talking about choosing stories and like trying to figure out what people are talking about. Where when I was at 11 Alive News, the NBC affiliate here in Atlanta, we just had a big board and we saw literally like what you pay. They paid a subscription for this, but you would see what people are searching for in the area pertaining to news. What was good at WSB? What was good at WAGA, the Fox affiliate? What was good at the CBS affiliate? Now Atlanta News First. Simpson said the company is moving toward a 24-hour streaming news model, which doesn't make sense in this world, especially for something that is as hyper that can be as hyper local as as Scripps News. In the same way that local now for the Weather Channel, like why is that? That should never be 24 hours too. And aims to turn its local station group into a, quote, technology-forward, AI-powered broadcast journalism company, which is, to me, a bunch of phrases they kind of just slap together. He assures us that Scripps is going to have quality journalism still, and calls the cuts painful and made of difficult decisions. But I just don't see this ending well for this company. It doesn't make sense. Recently, they turned down Sinclair's bid to buy them for $622 million. That last December. But this is not the direction in which they need to turn. For Scripps and for any news service, what you should do is gather more views by focusing on the news that people are following and the news that people need to know. And with that, you're going to have to focus on trust your correspondents. You know, if correspondents are forced to do stories that they kind of don't want to do, then you're also going to have to listen to them when they pitch you stories, which I know is not happening a lot. Trust me. All right, let's move on to my last set of stories. They basically are the same. This comes from Kayla Cobb at The Wrap. A 67% majority of creators earn less than $10,000 per year, a study finds. Here's the interesting thing. The word creator is not a job. Influencer is not a job to me. And yes, I understand. I say this as somebody who has his own podcast, who has his own website, who does this and does that. But the thing is, the entire time, most of the time, because C Plus Comedy will be, as of today, 13 tomorrow, 13 years old. Or actually, it turned 13 last Saturday, but whatever. The website launched on the 12th, but it turned 13 on the 8th, I believe. But what I called myself the entire time was essentially a producer. I made the website. I do all the things. I call myself a producer. And then when I landed in producer roles, that's when everything came into fruition. That's when everything did come into fruition. But at no point have I called myself a creator, because I feel like that is a generalization of a role. Now, I understand that, trust me, I've been on dates where women are like, what does a producer do? And I'm just like, stuff. We coordinate. We make sure things happen on time. But what's interesting here is that the people who are jumping into making things on the internet, those are what creators do. They make posts, they write blogs, they do content. They're not making money, which is something that I could have told you. It doesn't matter that you have a check mark on Instagram or TikTok. It doesn't matter that you had this many views on a video or this many subscribers. In the end, you cannot be making money, even if you have advertisers. You cannot be making money. You can't be making a living. There are so many people that I would see on YouTube and say, I finally made the jump to being a full-time creator. But you probably came from a job where you're an engineer. Like typically, it's mostly people I follow are, or I stopped following those people. But people I used to follow were like tech reviewers. But you had, let's say, 500,000 or 1 million followers, even if you're lucky. But typically, it's less than 100,000. And then you go, I'm making the full time leap. You don't have advertisers. You guess you have sponsors or you're getting sent the thing, but that doesn't mean that you have the money. There's a guy, I don't follow him, but I do watch his stuff periodically. His name is Jungle Jim Reviews. I don't know his real name. But he is a reviewer on YouTube of fitness stuff. He'll review the Beyond Power of Ultra, or he'll review like a new Rogue rack or something like that, or a treadmill or whatever. But he doesn't have that many subscribers, and he just moved. I think he quit his job, and he and his family moved to a new home. But they also, I guess, where he shoots his reviews was his garage gym. But now he moved his reviews to this facility, like a giant warehouse. And my thought process is, every single video is less than 10,000 views. How are you paying for this? But these people already have day jobs, and I assume they save up enough, and then they go, I'm going to do it. But anyway, 67% of them are earning less than $10,000 annually. This comes from Creator IQ and Influencers.club. It's part of a State of the Creators 2026 report. More than half, 62% of the 5,095 creator respondents across 100 reasons stated that the content creation is not their primary source of income. Correct. I can't imagine. The report also found that creator earnings are more likely to correlate with follower count and views than engagement metrics. I knew it. It's truly just the more followers and viewers you have and views you have, the more you're going to be making money. That insight goes against advice from industry experts who have spent the past year emphasizing that engagement is more important than the follower count. Interesting. Sorry, I was just rereading both sentences. Brands have spent years saying that authenticity, relevance, and community trust are what make creators valuable, but the economics of the industry still disproportionately reward scale. Oh, that's it. Never mind. I'm sorry. The opposite. Yeah. That's why I reread the sentences. Like, that doesn't make sense after I said it out loud. Okay, so I retract what I said. Yes, higher view counts, all that stuff. Same thing. That disconnect, that disconnect risks pushing creators toward the very behaviors audiences distrust, more commercial content and less creative freedom. Something that has been happening on YouTube for the past couple of months is there's a shift from making like real titles, like how I'll title this episode some bullshit, but they're like making real titles, to now I ran 6 marathons in 2 months. Here's what I learned, like stuff like that. It's not even just YouTube. It is happening on the New York Times. It's happening at the Atlantic. There's been a giant shift. There's also another thing where they put faces in the thumbnails of YouTube videos, and I generally am disgusted by it. The report also found that 50% of creators have either launched or plan to launch a brand of their own, meaning that business ownership still remains a vital way for creators to earn a reliable income for their work. How many people do I know sell their own, and they're not famous celebrities, influencers, anything like that, but they sell their own branded stuff? It's disgusting. Creators who earn more than $250,000 annually reported building drastically different businesses and having different demands than creators who earn under $10,000 a year. There's also a divide between creators and brands, although altogether, 42% of creators noted that there has been tension between the content their audiences want to see and the content brands ask them to produce. That figure goes up 53%. To 53% when it comes to creators with 500,000 or more followers on Instagram. Before we get to Instagram, this comes from Lawrence Bonk over at YouTube. YouTube is making it harder for creators to start getting a cut of ad revenue. New partners will now need twice the number of watch hours or short views in order to qualify. The big problem there is that YouTube, I believe, shifted their terms for this a couple of years ago, but they had new rules for this monetization. In February, this starts next year, you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers and either 8,000 qualified watched hours over the past year or 20 million qualified shorts views in the last 90 days. The current requirements were established. Oh, they don't have a timeline on this. Okay, well, I guess the current ones, instead of 8,000 qualified watched hours in the past 12 months, in the past year, you have to have 4,000 or 10 million qualified shorts views in 90 days. You know, at some point, this sucks because it does take a way for people to make money. Oh, they have the 4,000 thing right here. But the thing is, you know, everybody wants to be famous. And even if they say they don't want to, they do want to. There's so many people on dating apps that I see. So many women who are like, I'm real and I want an authentic and I want a man who opens the doors and but they like a lot of them share their Instagrams. Then you go to their Instagrams and they have 10,000 followers, and it's just like, you don't need to be here. You just want this for vain reasons. In a lot of cases, or you want followers. Like, I don't respond on this. Come here, follow me here. And then, you know, you run into people, you meet people, and someone's always trying to get a follower or to spread the name of their brand. Why are we doing this? Why is there such a need to be famous? And yes, I know, I get it. I understand the irony. I say that as somebody who is in the entertainment industry. But you should want to do this work. You should be able to want to do the thing that you've always wanted to do for free. Like, I've been doing this for 13 years and I have not gained a cent. Not $1 has been earned from C Plus Comedy. Thanks to C Plus Comedy. But I've always wanted to be a writer. I have the first books that I ever wrote in 3rd grade. I've always wanted to make movies. I have the first movies I ever made in elementary school. From elementary school. I just I'm a lot like Adam Goldberg on the Goldbergs. Except I wasn't a fucking nerd. But there's this idea that people just want to be famous and to be known while also trying to remain humble. It just doesn't make sense to me. Or like try to pretend to be humble. Peloton instructors. Now let's go back to Instagram. Back to this Wrap article. The Meta-owned platform remained the best place for branded content among top creators, according to, I just don't like the words branded and content and creators. According to the study, when it comes to earnings more than $250,000 a year, when it comes to creators earning that much, 60% named Instagram as their primary platform for branded content compared to 30%. I would not have guessed. I would have thought it'd be the other way around, that TikTok would pay more. But I'm thinking that since TikTok is so short memory based, if that is a thing, then that's the reason why Instagram is paid more. Survey creators rank TikTok as the best platform when it comes to where they post their branded content at 52%, platform monetization at 48%, and content performance at 51%. However, Instagram was named the best platform for creators looking for a long-term potential for building a sustainable creator business, ranked as number one for 38% of creators. Then TikTok at 35% and YouTube at 23%. Now that makes sense. The long-term thing makes sense, mostly because I feel as though people on TikTok, everything can be so flighty. Like the guy who did Hello, Mr. Jumbo, when that came out, I saw it that day, and I was like, "Whoa!" Because I was a part of the cool kids. I was like, "This is funny." And then also that day, his people emailed me, and they said, Kyle Gordon, that's his name, and they said, Kyle Gordon's got this new song, Hello, Mr. Jumbo. It's done this in 24 hours on TikTok. And he has an EP coming out, or an album coming out, and Daniel Radcliffe's on it, and blah, blah, blah. And then I said, hey, I'd love to talk to Kyle about the song and the music video and all this stuff. And they're like, we still haven't decided what we're going to do about this, so hang tight. It's been like a month. The survey also examined AI use among creators. Almost 3/4, 72% of creators report using AI tools for brainstorming, writing, or editing tasks that are considered to be more basic, which is unfortunate. This is why you see a lot of shitty, at least I do, videos, posts, reels, TikToks, shorts. Everything is done with AI now. Only 4% of creators use the technology for strategy and 1% to automate workflows. Most creators surveyed noted that they do not feel pressure to use AI to remain competitive. This is, that's something that I was already concerned about when it came to AI tools, is that these people will just turn into it, and they don't see an issue with it. Whereas in the entertainment industry, an industry that, I don't want to say matters, in a bigger industry, if you do rely on an AI tool, you're admonished for it. Eli Roth has a new movie, I think, called The Ice Cream Man, and he told Polygon, I believe, the website, that he used AI, sparingly to help do some stuff, because I think he directed and edited the movie himself. Anyway, and then it came out that he used AI heavily, because in the credits, the AI company that he used was in the credits, and so people called him out on it. And then he issued a statement to Polygon. It's like, hey, I did use AI. I use a lot of it. But that's the thing. When you have people like Brad Pitt came out and said that AI is going to be an interesting tool for people to use, or you have people that are completely against it, like who's completely against it? Me. Who else would be against it? Comedians, everybody else, people who aren't giant A-listers. You're going to have both sides. You're going to have a middle ground. You're going to have a lot of gray areas when it comes to this, to AI and AI tools. But I think in an industry like the entertainment industry, there's going to be splintering, and I think the tide is really just going to be on one area, where it's like, hey, no, we don't want to use AI right now at this point. However, when it comes to creators, in quotes, those people will really steer into it, because it will help them move things along a lot quicker, and in a time, in a place, in a part of jobs that they have to. You put out your Galaxy Z Fold 8 review, and then you have to work on the next video. That's just how it is, because they're two different behemoths, and they're not of the same ilk. All right, I'm hungry. Listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website cpluscomedy.com, where you can see a video where you can see almost every interview I've done. I've got those interviews come out if you want to see a video version of those interviews on youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can also see a video under the interviews, where you can also see a video version of this show, as well as the other podcasts, Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show, and the Constitutionals, the Entertainment Business News Show. Subscribe, youtube.com/cpluscomedy. Subscribe to us on social media, the place I just shat on. C Plus Comedy on Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Me on those platforms at Chad Black White. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.